Hey guys, this is Bradley Benner with Semantic Mastery, and this is the State of Local SEO Insights with Bradley Benner of Semantic Mastery, and this is for the week of May 26th, 2025. So we're going to be covering this newsletter that was drafted from a webinar that I hosted on May 8th, and we talked about a number of things, but specifically this webinar was really about AI hallucinations, and how to overcome that, how to prevent it. Or try to avoid it, okay? What is an AI hallucination? Well, it's very interesting, but there was this article that I was reading called about AI hallucinations. Good answers are not necessarily factual answers, an analysis of hallucination in leading large language models. It's a very interesting article, but it basically talks about how the large AI chats, so language models, basically want to please the user in that they don't, instead of the language models coming back and stating, we don't have enough information to provide a proper answer, they instead will fabricate an answer and present it in an authoritative and convincing manner in order to please the user, instead of just coming out and stating we don't have enough information to provide a proper answer. And so, that's what this article was about, was talking about, how things are, fabricated details and facts are often generated by the language models in order to provide an answer, even if it's not true and accurate. And so, well, how do we overcome that? Because that can be potentially damaging for a business, especially as more and more people, consumers, are switching away from Google search to more type of AI chat model and doing searches via AI chat instead of the search engines. And because of that, if you don't have enough content out there for a client, so if you're doing marketing services for a local business client and you don't have enough branded content out there that is explaining very thoroughly who the business is, what they do, where they do it, the products or services that they provide, how they're delivered, frequently asked questions about the products and services that they provide, all of that kind of stuff. The client, the local business, should have enough content out there so that the language models don't have to make stuff up. They can instead just pull content that it's ingested, that because there's branded content been published by the company or by the marketing agency on the company's behalf, so that the language models have ingested enough content to be able to provide answers without fabricating them, if that makes sense. So we talk about this is why we should be publishing branded content. And so this newsletter article here was really in the webinar that where I covered this. I was talking about a few different sources and things that we can use, for example, for determining what do the language models know about a particular brand. For example, this is one of the tools that I was talking about and that I was introduced to, and I brought this up during the webinar, which is called Noatoa. Currently, there's a free model, a free version of it, which is very limited, and then there's some paid versions. But basically, this is where you can go in and put like a brand name, for example, and say, or a website or whatever, and say start site analysis now, and it'll go out and it'll kind of determine, what's known about that particular website or brand from the large language models. And then it will start to pull back questions and things like that are depending on which model, which chat or language model you're using and in which version of the chat that you're using, etc. And it can give you ideas about how a brand, a local business brand in this case, right? How is it being, what is understood about it by these language models? And then it also comes back with questions and, frequently asked questions and things like that then you can start to publish content to answer those questions for the brand. In other words, start publishing content that satisfies some of the queries that the language models are showing are common or are being searched for, or being, users are querying the language models about, etc. And it's a great way to start to develop more branded content to prevent hallucinations and fabricated data or fabricated details. Okay. And so Noatoa is just an example. There are a number of sites out there like this. This is just the one that I happened to be kind of toying with a bit when I did this webinar, specifically about large language model hallucinations. Okay. So that comes back to, what should we be doing in order to publish content to overcome and prevent hallucinations from the AI chats so that it doesn't potentially cause damage to a brand by citing unfactual or reciting unfactual information, right? So how do we do that without also potentially causing problems in traditional search? What I'm getting at here is, interestingly enough, Semantic Mastery, we had a training program called Syndication Academy for many years. And that was where we would publish content on the branded blogs, so the main website or a YouTube channel or both. And we would have the content syndicate to Web 2.0, branded Web 2.0 sites, bookmarking sites, document storage sites, things like that. And it was automated syndication of content that was published either via the main website blog or the YouTube channel or both. And that was a fantastic way to get results for local SEO campaigns many years ago. I used the syndication method for years and got just crazy good results for my clients, because we would build syndication networks of Web 2.0, social media profiles, etc., then connect everything using IFTTT, which is if this, then that, so IFTTT.com. And we would use an RSS trigger. So every time a new item was detected in the RSS feed, it would trigger a syndication, republishing of that content out to the various properties within the network, the syndication network. And that worked incredibly well for many years. But over time, the kind of effectiveness of syndicating content kind of waned or declined a bit. And then when Google made a shift, especially away from a keyword algorithm to an entity-based algorithm, and especially when Google released the helpful content update, there was really two major rollouts of that. But one of the things that the helpful content update addressed was competing content or duplicate content on the same domain. In other words, if there are more than one page or post on a main website that are targeting similar search queries, similar terms, now they become redundant pages instead. Because remember, if we're optimizing for entities versus keywords, entity optimization is much more efficient in that an entity, there's a whole group of keywords or search queries associated with an entity. And when you optimize for an entity, then you can rank that page for all of the search queries that are associated with that entity, even if those search phrases or keyword phrases or whatever are not referenced or published onto the page. So in other words, remember with keyword optimization, which is what we did for many years, we would have to have a piece of content optimized for a specific variation of the keyword. And it could rank for close variants of that particular keyword phrase. But if you wanted to rank for variants, not close variants, but variants that were similar, but not a close variant, not considered a close variant of another search phrase, then we would have to have additional content published, optimized for the variants of those search phrases, because it was a keyword-based algorithm. So you pretty much had to optimize for every variant of the keyword that you wanted to rank for. We don't have to do that anymore. Google is much more efficient because it is an entity-based algorithm. And so if you optimize for the entities, all of the search queries, which is like a bucket or a group of keywords that Google's already associated with the entity, they're all relevant. So a single page optimized for the entity properly can rank for all of the search queries, even if the particular search query isn't present on the page. Okay. And so with that said, with the helpful content update, Google was looking at ways to reduce crawl budget or resources required to crawl and understand what a site is about. And so one of the things that the helpful content update targeted, again, as it relates to local search, is it looked for redundancy. Duplicate content on the same domain where there is more than one page or post targeting similar variations of a particular search phrase. Because again, now there's competing content as opposed to just having optimized for an entity, which would then be a much more efficient page that can be served for all of those other search queries that are associated with that entity. Okay. And so why I'm bringing that up is because Syndication Academy, we rebranded it as Brand Expander, because we omitted or removed the syndication components, but it was still important to go out and build additional branded and supporting assets. So branded Web 2.0 blogs, social media sites, again, press releases, anywhere that we could go out and create a new profile for a company that acts as a citation and as a validation signal, because we would reference the company name, address, phone number, website, Google Map, etc., the products or services, brand all of that stuff. Well, Brand Expander replaced Syndication Academy when we removed the syndication component. And what I'm getting at is with the publishing branded content for a local business company, is going to be required in order to prevent or reduce the likelihood of the large language models hallucinating and fabricating details. But we don't want to do it on the primary domain, because just publishing content on the primary domain as blog content can then create competing pages. That's what I was getting at, was saying it's not wise to go in and publish a whole lot of blog, branded articles onto the blog for the company's website for a local business, where you're targeting all these different, search queries or terms that are likely going to compete with top-level product or service pages on the main website. Do you understand? Because if you have a bunch of blog content that is targeting, so that you have branded content to overcome and reduce the likelihood of large language models hallucinating and fabricating details, then you got to have the content published somewhere. So where do we do it? If we're not going to do it on the main website, where should we do it? And this is where the syndication comes back in again, because I recommend publishing content onto one of the branded blogs. So, for example, if you have a branded Blogger or Tumblr or Weebly or WordPress or a Google site, so sites.google.com, something like that, use those brand extensions, right? So extensions of the brand on branded Web 2.0 blogs or something like that. Use those. It could be a Medium blog, whatever. Use those as the content source for the branded content. And you can publish content across multiple Web 2.0 or branded blogs, okay? So you don't have to just pick one. But then because that content is going to be published on an external domain versus the primary money site domain, it is not competing content. Do you understand? Because if you published multiple articles on the blog of the root domain of the main website, and they were all targeting very similar topics, they could end up competing, which lowers the site quality score and lowers the performance of all pages on the site that are competing with each other. So instead, focus on the main website with the top level product or service pages and or location pages, depending on what type of business it is, and then focus all of the branded content to answer questions very thoroughly about who the business is, what they do, where they do it, how the products or services are delivered, what the clients can, the customers can expect, what is the timeline, frequently asked questions, average cost for those products or services. All those types of questions and content can and should be published, but not on the primary website if it creates competing pages. Instead, publish on external branded domains. And syndication can come back into that. In that, for example, like let's just say used Blogger as a branded blog to publish branded content to answer some of these questions, right? You could use the RSS feed or just a syndication applet or recipe or whatever you want to call it that connects with Blogger. So it could either be triggered by a new RSS feed item being detected in the RSS feed of the Blogger blog, or it could be triggered by connecting Blogger to the IFTTT system, and then when you publish a blog post, it will recognize it, and then it will re-syndicate out to any of the distribution points that you've set up in the syndication. However, previously we used to just syndicate the exact same content with an attribution link, a link that would link back to the original source, similar to press releases, right? In press releases, there's always an original, which is where it was published originally, and then there are copies. And the copies point an attribution link to cite the source, which is going to be the original publication point. That's how we did it with Syndication Academy. And that may still be useful, but where it would be better would be to take the original piece of content and have it run through some rewriters, not spinners, but not like spin tax and all that. That's such an outdated tactic that we don't have to use anymore. But like run it through an AI rewriting service. So instead of doing a direct syndication from content that is just republished, have content rewritten and then syndicated, republished, but now it's in a unique and original version. That way you could target slightly different angles, slightly different terms, etc., across multiple pieces of content that was generated from one original piece of source content. Do you understand? And now, because of things like N8N and AI agents, we can develop that into it to where we can have a piece of content from an original source published onto whatever the trigger point is. Let's just use Blogger as an example. And then we could have that content recognized and picked up and sent to ChatGPT or any one of the large language models that you want to use to have it rewritten and then republished out to the other properties in the network, right? Each time it publishes to a new platform, so let's say WordPress.com or Weebly or Google sites, sites.google.com, etc., it would then be a new version of the article, not spun, but rewritten, if that makes sense. That way you have now a lot of branded content out there across various platforms that are thoroughly covering the products and services, the locations, how products are delivered, what the customers can expect, all of that stuff, so that the AI chats won't hallucinate because they will have enough content that they've ingested that thoroughly describes who the company is, what they do, where they do it, and how they do it. And that way the AI chat models don't have to fabricate data. So again, reinventing content syndication for the large language model era is really about publishing content, having it on external blogs, right? For all of this branded and supporting content, you want to publish on supporting or external blogs so that it's not competing with the top level pages on the primary website. And then each time you go to syndicate or republish an article to a different platform, it makes sense to have it rewritten. And this can all be automated now with AI. So there doesn't have to be any manual setup on this whatsoever other than originally setting up the system. Okay. So that was it for the kind of how to create branded content to reduce the likelihood of hallucinations and fabrications by the AI chats. So here's some quick action steps. Audit your client site for blog bloat. Move non-converting or redundant content to external blogs. This is what I was talking about. Even existing websites that you're currently working on for clients, if they have a lot of blog content, it is likely hurting the performance of the site. it makes sense to then remove posts from the main website and republish them onto branded blogs. That can be now you're building topical authority on the branded blogs, the external blogs, that then also are going to contain a link back to the primary website, Google Maps, Google Profile, Google Business Profile, etc. So you can use the external blogs as a link building source to power up the main website, to Google Business Profile, etc., while building up topical authority for the overall brand, but doing it on external blogs so that it's not competing with pages on the main website. Okay. Create 3 to 5 branded content hubs using platforms with RSS feeds. And again, they don't have to be RSS feeds. With the options we have now, we can usually connect directly to the platform so that whether we're using an RSS feed trigger or not, we can still publish content and syndicate content. You want to use tools like ZimWriter to bulk generate branded content using a Q&A format with large language model friendly prompts. So again, that's another thing. Like, for example, you could go in and grab a bunch of questions, frequently asked questions people also ask, etc., and then answer those questions with content that is promoting the brand and how the brand would or answer those questions or solve those problems or whatever. And you can publish all of that kind of content very quickly in bulk using people also ask questions. And now you've got all this content that you can then start publishing, and you can set it up on drip rates and like a drip schedule to publish content out to various blogs, WordPress, Medium, Tumblr, etc. You see, so again, this is how we overcome potential hallucinations from the AI models, as well as not cause problems because of the helpful content update with the self-hosted site by publishing too much content. So we're basically killing 2 birds with 1 stone here. We're improving the performance of the main website by reducing bloat and redundancy, duplicated content. But at the same time, we're building topical authority by publishing all of this content to the branded, external blogs, but then also satisfying or providing enough resources for the large language models to ingest so that they no longer have to fabricate information and present it in a convincing manner. So again, this is just another quick kind of recap of the NOAA tool. Again, tracking visibility and AI search. This is just one tool that does it. Like I said, there's a number of other tools out there. It's just the one that I happen to use. One of our mastermind members, Jeremy Noltzman from Press Advantage, he also had an interview or a call with the developer from NOAA. So he came on to the webinar and talked a little bit about it and showed inside the dashboard and what it looks like and some of the features, etc. And so this is just a pretty cool tool that can kind of help you to start to develop this sort of a strategy and content plan for your clients, right? And determine what do the language models already know about the brand, and how can we start feeding information into these language models to make sure that the language models recite or recall information that we want it to about the particular business. Okay. Then again, we got these types of tools here. RankBridge is Peter Drew's tool, which is specifically for publishing content, branded content across multiple platforms in a semi-automated way. So specifically to address what we've been discussing on today's call. ZimWriter, again, that's another thing you could use, the the penny arcade or whatever they call it. Like you could just do bulk content production using a CSV sheet of people also ask questions, for example, that then could be branded content, branded responses to those questions. Again, that would give you a ton of content for you to be able to publish onto the external blogs. Okay, so some quick action steps is to test RankBridge style workflows or services using ZimWriter and branded blog network. Again, RankBridge is just a tool that kind of semi-automates some of this stuff. You could do this manually. It doesn't have to be ZimWriter. It could be whatever content tool it is that you're using. Build a reusable SOP that covers prompt chaining, large language model chat setup, and publishing. So again, this is, for example, you can build into a chat feed a bunch of content from the client, right? So from the client's website, knowledge base, FAQs, information about their products and services. Do they have spec sheets about the products or services that they provide? All of that can be fed into a chat. And then again, now you have a dedicated chat that has an understanding of the client, the company, who they are, what they do, where they do it, types of products they provide, how they're delivered, all of that stuff. And then you would just generate content from that chat that then would be published onto all of these different branded blogs and blog extensions, etc. Okay. So again, we just talk about why branded content is defensive and offensive play, right? Because you want to defend the brand from potential fabrications and basically lies that would mislead a potential consumer. And it also is offensive because you're being proactive about promoting the brand for your clients, okay? And again, decentralized publishing is critically important because you do not want to create competing page problems and potential cannibalization on the main website. Also, make sure the content is structured properly so that it can be crawled by the large language models. You want to optimize for entities and the main optimization elements of each page or post that you're publishing. So headings, titles, headings, and subheadings should all be optimized for entities, and also, reinforcing the theme of that particular page or post, right? Whatever the topic is of that post, you want to reinforce that through the main optimization elements to make it efficient for the language models to understand what the content is about. And then again, we want to monitor and adjust by tracking, brand mentions and using a tool like Noatoa or something comparable to see what kind of progress you are making in building the brand up as far as the language model's understanding of it. Okay. So very interesting stuff, guys. I just thought it was a pretty interesting topic to talk about. As things are shifting away from traditional search, we have to also be optimizing for our clients in a way that is going to be beneficial and across different search platforms now, not just search engines, but now AI search and search chat, all of that kind of stuff. Okay. So the large language model visibility checklist for local brands is to publish 5+ branded FAQ style articles across Web 2.0 platforms. And 5+, it's going to be way more than that. It's something you should just do consistently. Use consistent NAP and brand mentions in each post. Again, you want to tie all of that content back to the brand very clearly. Link back to the money site and the GBP. Okay. So map embeds, again, NAP plus map embed, link back to the money site, etc. So you're always pushing credit from the branded content on the external blogs back to the primary assets. Okay. Test the language model visibility monthly by searching for branded and service-related queries in ChatGPT or in Perplexity, or use a tool like Noatoa that can help to automate that and make it easy in one centralized dashboard. And then you want to update or expand content based on the gaps that you find in the responses. So in other words, publish more content to fill in the gaps that are identified through using tools like Noatoa, etc. Okay, so that's it for the State of Local SEO Insights with Bradley Benner for the week of May 26, 2025. We are going to be talking about some additional tools coming up in the next week or two. Some really interesting keyword tools, and not just a keyword tool, but a marketing tool, a keyword and a marketing tool that is using 63 language models to develop all of the marketing plans. It's a very interesting tool. We're going to have a webinar about it, and then I'm going to do some kind of additional training about it over the next week or two as part of this State of Local SEO Insights series. So stay tuned for that. This is Bradley Benner with Semantic Mastery. If you want access to this newsletter, you just go to localmastery.semanticmastery.com and you can sign up for the newsletter. It's very inexpensive, but it's very, very thorough. If you want to join the mastermind to get access to the Circle community, as well as all the webinars, all the SOPs, the Q&A, get support directly with me, all the other members, etc., then you're going to want to go to mastermind.semanticmastery.com, and you could take a look at joining the mastermind over there. I meant to say mastermind.semanticmastery.com. You can check out joining that as well, monthly or quarterly. Either way, I would encourage you to check out our newsletter nonetheless, because this is a very punchy kind of newsletter that gets right to the point and provides a lot of actionable insights from the webinars that I host on a weekly basis. So once again, this is Bradley Benner with Semantic Mastery. This is the Local SEO Insights series for May 26, 2025.